Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. We're going to have Stu Burguiere with us in just a minute, but I want to start with this. The Met Gala is officially over. Dead. Done. Once the apex of high fashion culture and A-list celebrity, the gala now looks more like a sad sack D-list past its prime wannabe version of its old self. It's closer to today's nerd prom White House Correspondents' Dinner than the center of the celeb and beauty universe as it used to be. This year's theme was superfine, tailoring black style, an homage to black dandyism. What's that, you ask? No one has any idea. Prepare yourself, however, for a deep dive into leftist, academic, gobbledygook, nonsensical talk, which is probably how it got chosen as the Met Gala theme. That and their desire to pander to black people. The Met says black dandyism came from the intersection of African and European style traditions, of course. What does that mean? I have no idea. But it seems to be based on a 2009 book written by a woman named Monica Miller called Slaves to Fashion, Black Dandyism and the Styling of Black Diasporic Identity. Okay, so far we have dandyism, intersection, and diasporic identity. So we're betting 1,000 on the scale of leftist code language that will make liberals sound smarter and feel superior. Ms. Miller's book provides as follows, quote, "The black dandy's style is, from the beginning, always simultaneously personal, cultural, representative of the race, and about representation, even as it evaluates norms of racialization, class privileges, gender assignments, and the rules of sexuality in ways similar to that of his European dandy brothers." All clear now? No one is. The whole point is to lose you and sound smarter than you by saying words that are totally empty and meaningless. Dandyism, for those still lost and looking for meaning, is, per the New York Times, quote, "a style of elevated dress once imposed upon enslaved people, remade by black aesthetes." What is an aesthete, you ask? Why, it's a person who has or pretends to have a special appreciation of art and beauty, like that woman who wrote the book and the people at the Met and the people who write at the New York Times, who must be really familiar with the term aesthete, A-E-S-T-H-E-T-E, because it sounds like them. In any event, aesthetes who remake all of this into a tool of social mobility and self-definition. Does anyone understand any of this any better? No, you're not meant to, you dumbasses. You have to go to Harvard to understand what these people are saying, how they speak, and how they code talk. It's all just a dressed up way of saying, by the way, we are pandering to black people because we love black people, and that makes us good people. So what did we see last night? Well, it was basically Black Lives Matter at the Met. It was a parade of black Americans, leftists, in their dandy style, which, near as I can figure, appears to mean over-the-top black and white with weird shapes and vaginas showing. That's also apparently part of dandyism. Cramming into the Met, where the invitation-only tickets went for $75,000 a plate, and that's only for the losers willing to actually pay to rub elbows with stars like Lisa. Who is Lisa, you ask? Yes, I wanted to know too. She's the girl from White Lotus who was dating the security guard. Remember? She's top-notch star talent right there, people. Lisa. And how did Lisa interpret superfine dandyism? Apparently, it meant putting Rosa Parks on her vagina. Yes. This was the height of culture and high couture. Civil rights icon Rosa Parks reduced to a vagina cover. Look at this. Is that part of the diaspora? Is it? I'm asking Anna Wintour for a friend. Maybe somebody we know a little better, a legitimate star, could help us out. Let's go to Halle Berry, one of the world's most beautiful women, right? Perhaps she nailed it. Here was her outfit. Let's take a look. Here she is. Okay. If you zoom down to right above the bottom of the screen, what are you seeing there on this dress that has slits in it, where you see like see-through and then black stripe and then see-through? Oh, it's a vagina. It's her vagina. Yeah. Apparently, she thought the diaspora meant the labia, which she all but showed. Halle Berry, let me tell you something. has been in a 5-year effort to prove to us how sexy she is ever since some actress named Lisa Ray McCoy said on a show that she'd heard Halle Berry is bad and boring in bed. Look it up. And honestly, since that date to now, Halle Berry has been doing inappropriate photo shoots and going over the top with her language about her bedroom prowess because she's never been able to let it go, which means it struck a chord. I'm sorry, but if it didn't ring a bell with you, you'd be able to laugh at it and move on. That's part of being a public figure. But she has been instead putting out progressively more and more provocative pictures of herself all the way through last night where she went full side vagina. You've heard of side boob? This was side pube, and it wasn't pretty. I'm sorry, she's not looking her best. This was not the time to go side pube. And I really hope it doesn't become a thing because it's not really the most attractive part. I mean, really, like if you really want to get attention now, just to go full pube, right? Like do the Kanye, Bianca Censori thing. Like don't phone it in, Holly. You really want attention? Let's see it. Put it on display. Don't be such a priss. And speaking of not pretty, what the hell happened to Vera Wang? I'm sorry, but she looked like something that you would find inside of a public washer dryer set after a college frat boy did his laundry, then fashion's it designer. You can't see it from this far away photo. Ideally, we will zoom in on Vera's face because it's seen better days. And look, she's aging. She's obviously not doing anything to fight the aging. All of that's fine. But you're going to put on a black tie outfit and show up for the diaspora at fashion's biggest night, you might consider a little under eye concealer. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. Like, you needed it. If you can get away with it and you don't need it, more power to you. Vera, I'm here to tell you, you needed it, along with some mascara and a little blush and maybe a cameraman who was farther away. It was shocking. And while we're being mean, what were you thinking, Pamela Anderson? I mean, honestly, I know she's leaning into the I'm no longer a sex kitten, and I support her in that. I respect that, but she has leaned in so far. She has imploded into a large ball of makeupless sparkles, and I now miss barbed wire. This is not even recognizable. The weird pixie cut with the bangs, the little page boy bangs that are halfway down her forehead, and she's obviously put on some weight. Okay, again, fine. But like the dress was not flattering at all. It covered every inch of her. She looked like half man, half woman in this head to toe cover with no makeup on. I'm sorry, she can do better. Pamela Anderson in like jeans and a t-shirt is better than that. Colin Kaepernick was there again because it was BLM on a red carpet. Someone named Andre 3000 showed up with a piano on his back, which really did prove that this is really just a costume party and has nothing to do with fashion, which honestly is fine by me. I love costumes, but the advertising is all wrong. I thought it was supposed to be fashion's biggest night, high couture. It's a fucking piano on his back. How is that inspirational to this year's fashion season? And by the way, I happen to know, because I, in another life, knew Anna Wintour, she doesn't like all black. She likes colorful outfits. She gets upset when ladies and men wear all black. I don't know how she felt about the big black piano on that man's back, but whatever. That's his fashion statement. Whoopi Goldberg never misses the chance to dress like a man. Never. I mean, on The View, on the red carpet at the Met Gala, and you could be forgiven for mistaking her for one last night. Madonna, too, looked short. She looked stocky. And she looked manly. She went in all white. I mean, does dandyism mean cross-dressing? There was something about gender in that long, incomprehensible definition, wasn't there? And these stars think that they're being provocative by wearing tuxedos. One that was black and one that was white and the one that was black and white. And speaking of black and white, no one has done black and white this well since the black and white cookie. And it brings me to Kamala Harris. Did you see Kamala Harris last night? She did remind me of a black and white cookie with her weird little dress that, again, much like the Pamela Anderson dress, made her look like 3 times her size. Look at her. She looks enormous. She looks like the before picture for an Ozempic ad. I don't know what woman decides to add another 1/4 to her size with her dress choice. This is very odd to me. And there's Doug Emhoff in a regular looking tux, which given the other options we saw last night was fine. But in general, these women wearing black and white or black and white in a tuxedo is boring, as were most of the looks, boring and done. One of the only ones who dazzled at all was Diana Ross. And yes, as the papers all said today, coming up with the same headline, she reigned supreme. And she did wow everyone. I mean, any of us in an 18-foot train would wow anyone. Apparently, people were pissed because they had to get off the stairs so she could enter. But you know what? Stardom has its privileges, so I kind of support this. She looked awesome, and it's great to see some of our old Motown royalty still around and asserting their proper place in the pecking order. Look, the real problem with last night's Met Gala, I mean, there were many. It's just off point. It's too much privilege in the hands of too few people who we cannot stand. I mean, the stars don't have to pay that $75,000 a ticket. That's truly just the loser wannabe star fuckers who pay that money so they can sit next to Lisa. They don't even know who that is. Who are you? When you have to say it's the girl whose name, the name doesn't even come to mind of like who, what was that character name again? She dated Gaetan or whatever his name was. Like that's how you got to be, you know, like the famous person. That's why you're here. And by the way, it pretty much was the White Lotus Met Ball. There were like Black Americans and then the White Lotus people. Here's Lisa in that movie. And then the White Lotus people. And like, not for nothing, but Patrick Schwarzenegger, the Nepo baby of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Maria Shriver, was, speaking of dandy, looking a little light in the loafers. Now, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think he's hetero, and that was not a good look for him because he had cinched that tiny little waist as small as the David Muir waist in the fireman's jacket with the clothespins in the back. I miss men. Why does going to the Met Gala mean you have to look like a girl? I prefer the Doug Emhoff look, frankly. He looked like a tiny little cinched waist girly girl. Dandy. I mean, dandy, I can't get back on the definition of dandy, but it does have sort of a gay connotation, and Patrick Schwarzenegger was leaning in. But the point is, this thing is so over the top with its privilege and its wealth and its people who are totally fucking out of touch, rubbing elbows with one another. It brings a little vomit to one's mouth. And that's why we watch it, to hate watch it. And now this year, they added in the extra element of the total fucking pander. Sorry, that's 3 F-bombs in the top 10 minutes. My apologies. Of the total pander. And we're done with that. Anna, I guess you didn't get the notice. Or maybe she did, and this is just Anna Wintour, one of America's richest, meanest bitches, trying to declare herself as part of the resistance. She's the new face of the resistance. The biggest bully in America, with more money and access to power than virtually any other American. Now she's going to be the new resistance because Trump and the majority that elected him have said, we are done dividing ourselves by race. We're done leaning into things like the black diaspora. Okay? Fashion is fashion. But she's got to do it because she's got to remind you that she's a better person than you are. And that, of course, means she's not. And her behavior proves she's not, because only people who are not need to run around trying to prove and lecture the rest of us on how good they are. Okay, so Anna Wintour is done. Our days of pandering are done. And so, very clearly, are the days of the Met Gala. Joining me now, Stu Burguiere, host of BlazeTV's Stu Does America. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. This July, there is a global summit of BRICS nations in Rio de Janeiro. The bloc of emerging superpowers, including China, Russia, India, and Iran, are meeting with the goal of displacing the US dollar as the global currency. They're calling this the Rio Reset as BRICS nations push forward with their plans. Some worry global demand for U.S. dollars will decrease, bringing down the value of the dollars in your savings. While this transition won't happen overnight, the Rio Reset could mark a pivotal moment. So learn if diversifying your savings into gold is right for you. Birch Gold Group can help you move your hard-earned savings into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals. Claim your free info kit on gold by texting MK to the number 989898. With an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold arm you with a free, no-obligation info kit on owning gold before July and the Rio Reset. Text MK to 989898 today. Stu, welcome back. I'm sure you were riveted to your TV as the red carpet arrivals unfolded. Your take on the display of opulence, arrogance, and disdain for regular people that we witnessed last night.
Well, first, I must say that despite the fact that I host 2 national shows a day, this is the reason why your show is my wife's favorite show. That was absolutely incredible. And I will say, my wife's name is Lisa. I will assure you, she does not have Rosa Parks underwear. But I will say, even if she did, you wouldn't know it because she wears pants when she goes outside.
Pants. That secret option number 2.
Yeah, it's a nice step that I think a lot of people should really consider. I mean, first of all, it's just completely a ridiculous event in and of itself. And I think at one point, maybe it had some utility. At this point, you're right. It feels like this outdated sort of tribute band version of the woke era, right? Like there was a time where it seemed like everybody went down this road and all we did was say that the color of the skin was the most important thing. And we have to constantly lead into every single woke word. And, the Ibram Kendis of the world were thriving. Well, that's over, right? All right. Didn't we all realize this is over? This is past? Ibram Kendi had to close down his institute at the college. Like, do we remember Robin DiAngelo's not getting booked quite as often? The speaking fees are down. I thought we were a little bit past this. And I think, watching it happen, it did feel sort of like a procession for that entire movement, like this pathetic attempt to maintain it and keep it around. And I feel even more infuriated when you think about the scope of it, right? You're talking about $75,000 a dish for those peasants who needed to pay it. And they're there going to this event with all these expensive clothes and this incredible opulence. And they're the ones that are going to tell us tomorrow about how important income inequality is. I want a constitutional amendment that bans anyone who ever goes to that event from talking about income inequality ever again. Because how can we possibly take you seriously? It is a pathetic, pathetic display that we watched. And despite the fact that the outfits are, with very few exceptions, completely bizarre and strange, it is more about that attitude of these people are better than you. They will tell you how to think. And if you don't think the same exact way down the line that they believe, you are the disgusting peasant that they don't have to consider when they're at this event, when they're making policy that affects those everyday people who find this whole avenue grotesque.
Once again, the field was littered with Kardashians. I mean, if you want to lower the quality of your event in one fell swoop, just invite them all, which is what Anna Wintour does every year. From Kim to Kylie to Kendall, take your pick. They're there. And their mere presence, whether it's your Met Gala or your fake space launch, will undermine the gravity, shall we say, of your event and the seriousness with which any of us can take it. They're the OG nude fashionistas, though they were clothed last night. Here's Kim in her weird little witch's hat and her incredibly tight outfit, because that's all she ever does. But at least she was not showing us, at least last night, her vag. The Halle Berry choice, Stu, I'm sorry, but it marks a new low. So, okay, Shakira showed us her vag at a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. So did J-Lo. And now you've got Halle Berry, who's, truly, I think, accepted as one of the world's most beautiful women. Look at this. Yeah. This is a close-up, forgive me, of the side pube. We got side pube on the right and the left. And the thing that makes me so upset about this is any woman could do this. All right. Now, by the way, Halle Berry, not for nothing, but she's put on probably about 10 pounds. So maybe this wasn't the night to bust out the side pube. But okay, it's fine. But does your Lisa think if you brought her to the, let's say, radio and television correspondence dinner, that if she showed side pube, she couldn't make a headline or two. Literally every woman listening to me right now and every man who has a daughter or a wife or a sister knows that if they put their loved one in a side pube dress, they would get attention. They'd get clicks. They'd wind up maybe even on the Megyn Kelly show, but not for the right reason. And Halle Berry has some sort of a complex where it's never enough. Her natural gorgeous skin, her natural gorgeous looks, her natural gorgeous breasts for that matter. It's not enough. You've got to go full pube because everybody has to outdo each other. You know, once Bianca Censori's been out there, right? Like that's the new standard. Or that Emily Ratajkowski, whatever her name is, she's half naked all the time. This is the new, and like we lose a little dignity as a society every time one of our actual stars buys into this.
Yeah, you're totally right on that. And Halle Berry, right? This is an Oscar award winner, right? Like this is someone who's not just some lady, right? Like she is, as you point out, kind of generally agreed upon as one of the, the world's most beautiful women. And she's going through this. It's totally unnecessary for her, but it does play into, I think, the societal pressures and I don't want to say pressures as if she should be giving into them. I'm just saying that like the incentives of our world right now seem to be lined up this way. It's why so many people are on Instagram, flaunting their cleavage to get clicks. It's why, I mean, it's a very long road that leads to the British woman on OnlyFans having sex with 100 men in a day, right? It's the same road. We're all there. We're all looking at this same path where it just cheapens everything about who we are. I mean, she's an accomplished actress. She is, was at the top of her field at one point. There's no need for her to do this. She doesn't need to be the new starlet who's showing lots of skin to try to get attention. There's no need for it. But there seems to be this desire to constantly to constantly escalate that part of humanity. Like sexuality is part of humanity. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not designed to be something that's thrown all over close-up shots on the Megyn Kelly show. That's not it's not what it's supposed to be, Megyn.
Remember Chrissy Teigen showed her underwear at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. She was considered a, quote, star who went to that thing a year or two ago. She showed her underwear there. I don't get it. Like, there's a time and a place for a sexy photo. I'm not against that. I'm truly not like a prude. But it's very weird to choose to show instead of like your shoulders or like some cleavage, some like, tasteful amount of cleavage, to go well beyond that into showing, again, the side pube, which has now become a new thing. The pandering to the BLM crowd was over the top. May I read you? I mean, this is unbelievable. If the GOP did this, Vogue and the New York Times would be apoplectic about it. Listen to the menu that they served last night at what was basically the Black Met Gala. Delicacies like papaya piri-piri salad, cucumbers with Caribbean green seasoning, Creole chicken with lemon emulsion, BBQ collard greens with bacon, cornbread with a honey curry butter, and a dessert named Bodega Special Cosmic Brownie. I'm sorry, but this is making me uncomfortable because the Black people like chicken and they like Caribbean green seasoning, the Creole chicken they like collard greens with bacon and cornbread. This is like, so the left, Anna Wintour can do this kind of pandering because she got a panel of Black advisors, all Black advisors. Oh, and they want us to know they met at the Apollo Theater in Harlem to plan this. And she's gotten their imprint, Stu, so it's fine for her to charge $75,000 for some Creole chicken and collard greens because she's having the Black Met Gala. But you tell me if anybody right of center served that menu at an event meant to honor Black Americans, they'd get fucking killed. That's time for Forgive Me.
Number 4, we're setting new records here. I bring out the best in you, Megyn. I think there is you're completely right, by the way. Imagine if a conservative decided to support that menu at an event where you put, again, who would even put Black in the title of an event? I don't even understand the mindset that would lead you to that part, very small part of all of this. There's I think it was Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where where Larry and JB Smoove were in line and he wants to buy watermelon. Yes. And he's trying to get himself to, it's okay that you actually like watermelon, right? And Larry David's like, it's okay. Watermelon's delicious. It's okay to order a black man to buy a watermelon. It's okay. It's a very funny scene, but it does sort of attract attention to this bizarre thing where we take foods and assign them to races and cultures. That's part of culture, right? It is. There's nothing wrong with enjoying a particular food. And it's really more about the way the media and the left has done this over the years. Instead of just saying you know what, I don't know, maybe white people like certain food. I have a friend who always tells me that white people are the only people who like mayonnaise. I don't know if that's true. That's what he always tells me.
Ew. But why does that have to be ours?
Maybe it's true.
I know. It's the one thing that we have. Why do we get stuck with mayonnaise? Why couldn't we get watermelon? That's better.
No, it's delicious and it's healthy.
Anyway, it's just so ridiculous. And then they want us to know it was a black chef who came up with the menu, so Anna Wintour is not racist.
Hands off. We're okay.
It's just so it's 5 years late, right? We're done with this. Blacks, Hispanics, Indians, they're done with this. They all voted for Trump in record numbers because, in part, they wanted to put a stop to this dividing us by race. Nonsense. It was progress to put him back in office so we can stop doing that. And so Anna Wintour so white, literally one of our whitest Americans. I mean, you can't get whiter, decides she's going to be the one to resurrect the pander and really, in doing so, set us back. Black people appreciate fashion and so do whites. Right? And then we have to go back to how whites, because dandyism, we really dig deep into these articles. It's about how white slave owners made certain slaves dress up in these over-the-top outfits. And so it's dandyism is an homage to what they did and then how Black people took that and made it their own and found empowerment out of it. But everything's got to revolve around the white man slave owner, our terrible history as a country. And we have to be reminded of exactly what, ancestors of nobodies really at this point in the country, other than 2% of us who are on the Mayflower, did many moons ago.
I love how the solution to an issue from long ago where we had rich white people tell black people how to dress, the solution to that is to have rich white people tell black people how to dress. That's how we solved it, everybody.
I better see Rosa Parks someplace. Oh, wait, not there, Lisa. not there. It's really unbelievable, and it's over. Okay, but now speaking of totally out-of-touch leftists posing awkwardly for the camera, did you see the spread? Oh, my God, it's unbelievable. With all these leftists in their living rooms. Hold on, I got to find this. Is this in the AM update? Yes, in the New Yorker. They call it powerhouses. And they've taken their favorite lefties and photographed. It was supposed to be a photograph, traditionally they would photograph their living room, just show off. And as New Yorkers, I mean, I'm not one now, but I have been one for the past 17 years. We all love to see inside of each other's apartments. It's like being on a cruise ship. They tend to be smaller, and it's interesting to see what people can do with such a small space to make it, work and so on. So we're all fascinated by apartments. So showing the living rooms makes some sense. But this year they decided to add the humans in their living rooms. And it's all leftists because it's powerhouses, and why would they feature a conservative powerhouse? That's not of any interest to the New Yorker. So they've got again, just least attractive leftists you can find. And on that front, forgive me, but I'm just going to tell the truth. I'm going to start with Ella Emhoff, who they continue to tell us is some sort of a supermodel. I'd like to see the photos. What runway show has she walked in? Because what I see is a woman who would never qualify as a supermodel in anybody's book. She might be the living opposite of a Kate Moss or a Paulina Porizkova or a Cindy Crawford, who were the OG supermodels. She looks short, stubby, with large calves and a bunch of tats all over her and strange eyeglasses and hair in a very weird little living room holding a tiny little dog. So that's her. And then there's AOC in her Queens. They want you to know she's in Queens. She's a woman of the people living room, knitting, because she's just like us, Stu. She lies at on her couch at home. And in between going to the Met Gala, remember, in a dress that reads tax the rich, as she's hobnobbing with them at $75,000 a plate, she knits. So that's relatable, okay? That's why she needs to be our next president. But my favorite is Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton, well-known race hustler and hoaxer, who somehow rehabilitated himself into one of the very serious and esteemed voices on MSNBC, whose photograph is him in his living room with a photo of him in the background. As author John Gabriel put it on X, like Al Sharpton, my house only has photos and statues of me plus a little cage for the kids, which is what it looks like. There's literally a huge photo of himself on the wall behind him, nothing else, then another photo that appears to be, I don't know, maybe of him, a statue, I don't know who the statue's of, could also be him, and then a weird little, looks like a pack and play kind of thing, which is apparently for his dog. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know Al Sharpton well enough, but he made the list. And then the absolute best is Huma Abedin and her husband, Alex Soros. Now, I understand. I feel for Huma Abedin because for years she's obviously been abused by Hillary Clinton as her right-hand woman. I mean, that seems clear when you work for one like that. So she must be able to take high levels of abuse. I mean, that's my opinion. And then she married Anthony Weiner, who had some weird photos of two young children, and really just his whole mayoral race ended in utter disgrace, as did his earlier race. He had a couple races which he was booted out of for his absolutely disgusting behavior, and then eventually their marriage failed. Shocking. And by the way, his laptop may have helped cost Hillary Clinton the presidency, so she's got to live with that, which is a leftist legacy no one wants on the progressive side. And then she finds like the payload, the son of George Soros, Alex Soros. Now, unfortunately, he's extremely homely, and there is a scintilla of sexiness about this man. He looks asexual to me. He just looks totally like asexual, like he's never had a beating heart looking at anything. And this is their pose in the most antiseptic, sterile, cold, uninviting living room I've ever laid eyes upon. It's got the floor-to-ceiling window, so I guess they think we're going to be impressed. They forgot to add anything resembling love, anything resembling comfort or coziness. You go to visit Ma Kelly, my mom Linda, you're going to get the doilies on the side tables. You're going to get the cute prayers that are framed on the window, on the walls. You're going to get the two matching lazy boy chairs, well worn and loved. You're going to get tons of family photos. Look at this. It's like hell on earth, this photo. Steve Krakauer said, and I totally agree with him, they've got Margot and Todd vibes from Christmas Vacation. Right?
Yes.
Remember, right? Elaine Bennis, what's her name? Julia Louis-Dreyfus.
Yeah, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where they're just, you could freeze ice on their ass. They look so cold. Yeah, well, here they are. And this is what they put out, like knowing it's going to be in the New Yorker, is like their power photo. And this has been some of the reaction. Okay, Stephen L. Miller, I love him on X. You know him. He's been on before with you, I think. He writes in response to all of this, sure, let's have that oligarchy conversation. X user Jarvis on this Huma Abedin and Alex Soros picture. By the way, there's something sexist about how he's sitting in like the power seat with his arm out and she's standing next to him holding his hand. There's something sexist about it. It reminds me of the Mika and Joe thing where she kicked her legs up and he was sitting in the power position. Like, this is her telegraphing subservience to me. Like, I'll get you whatever you need. What do you need? You need a coffee? You need a back rub? What can I get you? Anyway, ex-user Jarvis tweeted out, loved this picture in the voice of Alex Soros. Loved this picture of me, a heterosexual, and my wife, who I love being physically intimate with. Chadwick Moore, tasteless, frigid, antiseptic. I've been in dentist offices with more soul and character. Byron York, one of, if not the most powerful person in the Democratic Party. Very heartland. Exactly right. So all of this does what for the Democrats' image, Stu Burguiere?
Not much, nothing positive. I don't think it does much for any of their images. You say that Alex Soros does not have a scintilla of sexiness. I assumed the sexiness was supposed to be provided by the commas in the bank account, which should provide you a very nice place. But it doesn't even seem to be, honestly, that they're hitting that standard. They look pissed in the photo. It looks like the last thing you see if you're an Uber Eats driver and you've dropped off the wrong order and you're backing out of the apartment. That they look at you like with just disgust at you, and it makes their life feel disgusting. It kind of does. I think like it has that element of it. There's this thing that this type of thing. If it were some rich conservative who made his money through, I don't know, supplying really important fuel and energy to our country so we can have a civilization, that person with this same background would be, I don't think they would have it. I think it would look different, maybe a little more gold. But it would be seen as a disgusting sign of wealth and opulence and this grotesque capitalism that this country is hitting us with, despite the fact that it's also provided us with life expectancies that are longer than ever and billions of people ripped out of extreme poverty across the world. Those things are never discussed. We would just look at this as this disgusting, gross thing where these rich conservatives taking advantage of the American people. I mean, look, providing oil, providing technology. Something much more than anything Alex Soros has ever done. He's the kid of a guy who went around the world, raping other people's currencies and destroying other people's currencies in foreign countries. He is not a sign of, the family wealth didn't exactly come down a tree that you'd want to necessarily brag about when it comes to levels of how wonderful that process is. And we're now supposed to look at this. I mean, I don't know. Maybe she's improved her lot. I will say she was married to Anthony Weiner and worked for Hillary Clinton. This might be the best possible days of her life. I mean, might be the golden years for her, frankly.
Unlike Vera Wang. This might be the golden age for her. This guy, all I can think about is it inherited wealth? I'm not sure, because I spent a lot of time with, for example, Lachlan Murdoch when I was at Fox. I don't remember him doing photo spreads like this. He's actually quite private. He's got, I think, literally the largest home in Los Angeles. He and his extremely gorgeous supermodel wife, actual supermodel wife, they don't show it off. They don't need anyone's affirmation of how wealthy and powerful they are. That's what real wealth and real power looks like, in my experience. They don't want attention. The last thing they want is a show like Succession, right? Talking all about them and their intra-family drama. But this guy, Alex Soros, has leaned into his totally inherited role as kingmaker within the Democrat Party, right down to marrying Huma Abedin, Anthony Weiner's cast-off, which is just a very sad thing to be. And I don't know. I think about it a lot. I really want to have in my life enough money that I can live comfortably and, maybe give my kids a very small nest egg to help them in case of an emergency in their lives when I'm gone. And that's it. Because I'm telling you, give too much wealth to the next gen and you wind up with a prick like that, with that facial expression, trying to act like he owns the world when he was just born on third base and has done absolutely nothing other than receive this baton of power and money from his old man. How pathetic and how not stimulating to his female partner. I know the commas are supposed to provide the stimulation, as you say, but that generally requires you to earn them. What's sexy is a man who earns, whether it's a Mason or a millionaire. What's sexy is the hard work that goes into earning them. By this standpoint, George Soros is sexier than his weird little Gru-looking son. Doesn't he remind you of Gru from the Despicable Me series?
Yes.
All of it is, you couldn't draw up a more apt villain.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's also, you could not draw up a better vision of the hypocrisy of the modern left, right? Like I work with Glenn Beck on a day-to-day basis. We've talked just a little bit about George Soros over the years, spent a little time on that topic. Yeah. And one of the big responses to that early coverage was, no, that's not what's happening here at all. George Soros, sure, he's a Democrat. He makes some donations, but he's not this big puppet master trying to control the United States and all of the policies. He's not doing those things. He's not he's a factor, not a factor in the Democratic Party. You're being ridiculous. You're overstating this. And their answer to that is to put Alex Soros, who's accomplished exactly nothing on his own, precisely nothing, to elevate him to this level of control where Tim Walz was over at this same apartment during the campaign. He was meeting with Kamala Harris. He's best buddies with every power player on the left. They've taken at least a guy who was accomplished in his grift in George Soros and handed all this power times 10 to Alex, who seems to have done absolutely nothing to deserve it.
Except perfect his little villain face and his little pinky digging into the side of his smile. Austin Powers like.
There is definitely a Dr. Evil vibe there going on. And what happens with all this money? It goes to fund candidates who come out and tell us about income inequality, to tell us about how millionaires and billionaires are bad people, how billionaires shouldn't even exist. These are things that left-wing activists say all the time, and it's being funded by this guy in this apartment. You cannot put a price on it.
They're literally right now lecturing us about oligarchy. Right now. These people. Just going down the list a little more, this list in the New Yorker of the living rooms, they decide to feature, this is rich, Chase Strangio. You may not know that Chase, but you should know Chase because Chase is the transgender attorney who argued before the U.S. Supreme Court on this one case that they're going to lose on whether parents should have the right to make these medical decisions for their children and sterilize them and take away sexual function when they're minors. In any event, here is attorney Chase Strangio to Jake Tapper on CNN on December 3rd, right? Is it this December 3rd? Defending these so-called trans procedures for minors. Watch this.
Nobody has to provide this medication to adolescents. These are not doctors being forced to provide this medication. These are doctors who are wanting to treat their patients in the best way that they know how based on the best available evidence to us. And these are young people who may have known since they were 2 years old exactly who they are, who suffered for 6-7 years before they had any relief. And what's happening here, it's not the kids who are consenting to this treatment, it's the parents who are consenting to the treatment. And as a parent, I would say when our children are suffering, we are suffering. And these are parents who love their children, who are listening to the advice of their doctors, of the mainstream medical community, and doing what's right for their kids, and the state of Tennessee has displaced their judgment.
Okay, so this is a nice test for the listening audience. I intentionally didn't say any pronouns about Chase Strangio before we tossed to that soundbite. The listening audience in particular heard a woman who has taken testosterone there. It's very clearly not a man. It is a woman pretending to be a man who's taken testosterone. Those voices are very unique. They're very distinguishable. They fool no one. And if you, listening audience, were to get a look at Chase Strangio by going to our YouTube feed and going 42 minutes out of the hour, you would be even more convinced because other than growing a fake beard and wearing a man's suit, this looks like an effete, feminine woman in dress up, like a Whoopi Goldberg, except this one's feminine. It's ridiculous. And so saying that kind of nonsense on CNN about how it's fine, it's just totally cool to have these procedures done on minors who cannot possibly consent as minors as young as 12 to the loss of sexual function for the rest of their life. Like any 12-year-old even knows what that feels like or is to sacrifice, chase, is absurd, and it will get you featured in the New Yorker as one of the power brokers in, I guess they'll go with his, in quotes, living room. Let's take a look how Chase Strangio, which is the only true part about this person, is living. Not well. Yeah. That's no surprise. If she is so powerful, where is her powerful living room? Where's her nice living room? Because this doesn't look so great. The window air conditioner, I don't know, the scuzzy clothes. These are our legal eagles now being honored and fitted by people like the New Yorker. You feeling it, Stu?
Oh, yeah. I will say in Chase Strangio's defense, he is much more masculine than Alex Soros. And that is something that I think we can all agree on by looking at those photos. Very low bar. It is fascinating what gets you featured, right? This gets you featured because you're in a lawsuit. I mean, at least, again, as opposed to Alex Soros, at least she accomplished something, I guess, as a lawyer to get to the level where you at least be showing up in front of the Supreme Court. That's something, I suppose. A court case, obviously, that they're going to lose. But okay, that's at least something. It's amazing what they will feature and what they won't. You know, I was thinking about this as we were talking about the billionaires, Alex Soros and the rest. Many of whom really rich people are featured in this spread, and of course at the Met Gala. And I thought to myself, look at the way they're talking about, Alex Soros and praising him, and the way they treat Elon Musk. And he is seen as an oligarch. He is seen as a tyrant. The New York Times wrote a story today that featured, it was supposed to be about how Donald Trump was embracing conspiracy theories. And in the article about Donald Trump embracing conspiracy theories, they call Elon Musk America's unelected co-president. Now, that to me seems like a conspiracy theory. It's quite clearly not true. Yeah, a little bit. And I started thinking about, I want to, what about those Elon Musk profiles like this? Now, he may have had them at some point. He kind of famously doesn't live in the sort of bizarre, cold opulence of Alex Soros. That's not the way he's chosen to live his life. He's got lots of interesting choices in his personal life that we don't necessarily have to get into. But he doesn't get these glowing profiles, despite the fact that, unlike Alex Soros, no matter what you think about Elon Musk, he is brilliant. He is a genius. He has created more value for the United States in so many different areas than
he's trying to cure paralysis now with his Neuralink company. That alone should tell everyone to shut the you-know-what up and just say thank you. There, see, I censored number 5. And instead, you saw, I think it was the Media Research Center that calculated the research, the media coverage that he's gotten. And for Elon, if memory serves, it was 97% negative. It was 97, it might have been 99. And for Hegseth, it was 100% negative. All negative on the evening newscast. That's what they looked at. All Incredible. Negative. So yeah, if you're Alex Soros, you get the feature in the New Yorker with the woman, look at me, And if you're Elon, you get all negative oligarch hit pieces.
Right. And that happened when? Not at the beginning. He was praised. We did a documentary back in 2006 or 7 about, energy and global warming and all these things. And one of the segments of it was a feature on Tesla. This is before Elon Musk really was running it. And we were the only people out there saying, oh, gosh, this is actually interesting technology, even though we're not global warming people. Back then, the coverage was all positive until the second he decided to keep his factory open during COVID. That started a process which ended up eventually in him endorsing Donald Trump and has now become the biggest Dr. Evil in the world, according to the left. It's bizarre. Most of the stuff he's done has been toward their policy aims, like fighting global warming, and they still hate his guts.
Yes, green energy with the Tesla cars and Neuralink and colonizing Mars. That's bipartisan. I mean, there's nothing partisan about that. Twitter, that's where he went really south with them because he allowed speech that you're not allowed to say, according to the left, and it changed the course of history. It changed the course of the debates that we're having right now, especially on the transgender issues, which is unforgivable, never mind what he did when he then endorsed and worked for Team Trump. Okay, there's so much to get to still. My gosh, I'm looking at my list here, and there's such goodness. 60 Minutes, over the top. Dave Portnoy, our guest of just a couple days ago in a firestorm, and is handling it as only Dave Portnoy can. We'll get to it all next. When your metabolism works properly, you feel the benefits in so many aspects of your life. And that's why I want to tell you about Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. The app lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives tailored guidance to improve nutrition, workout, sleep, and even stress management. Just breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you will know what's going on with your metabolism. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you get real-time info. Your metabolism is how your body turns the food you eat into fuel that keeps you going. It's at the center of everything your body does. Optimal metabolic health translates to easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, and more. The warmer months are coming. Spring back into your health and fitness. Go to lumen.me/Megyn to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/Megyn for 15% off your purchase. Thanks, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. This just in, Lisa has greater star power than we normal mortals even knew. She also happens to be a K-pop star with 100 million followers on Instagram, thanks to her K-pop role. For those of you listening, K-pop is like Korean bands that have made it in Korea, and some over here too. Like, what's the other one? Is it BTS, BTK? BTK is the killer.
BTK is the murderer, yeah.
As you can see, I got my finger on the pulse, Stu. In any event, Lisa apparently wasn't big enough in K-pop to get to the lessons about Rosa Parks and how we don't put her on vag underwear and take her out as our personal wardrobe. But she's learning. She's learning the hard way. She also apparently got in trouble not long ago for some old tape of her singing the N-word, which apparently I guess they don't teach you that either in school in Korea. We don't say that. That's not something we say or sing unless we're black, in which case you can say or sing it as much as you want. I'm just following the rules as they've been set up by the rap industry. Okay, so there's a lot going on. I want to get to Jen Psaki. Jen Psaki really wanted us to know, as she went on the Mixed Signals podcast on Friday, that she really had no idea that Joe Biden, her boss for years, was mentally infirm. And when she left the White House in May of 2022, he was A-OK, Skipper. He was doing just fine. She was just like shocked when he had that debate meltdown. Here's what she said in SOT 4.
I left in May of 2022, just for the facts here. And I have seen Biden once since then, when I took my daughter to the holiday party this last December after he had lost. And so I hadn't seen him in person during that period of time. I never saw that person, not a single time. And I was in the Oval Office every day that was on that debate stage. I'm not a doctor. Aging happens quite quickly. Were things that people saw during that period of time that were similar to that or would have been in a category of that? I don't know, possibly.
She never saw him in person, and she's not a doctor. She wants you to know that, Stu. And you're not a doctor, and I am a doctor and an astronaut. I'm a juris doctor, and I was able to diagnose him from my desk. So I just want her to know you're not one, and you were able to diagnose. I am one, and I was able to diagnose. So we've got this whole thing covered. We put together just I'm not going to play. It's just too short, but we put together a list of the many mental infirmities that we saw from Joe Biden, like the more popular ones prior to her departure. They included him slipping over and over again while trying to walk up Air Force One, getting lost on his way back to the White House, referring to Vice President Kamala Harris as President and First Lady, confusing the immigration policy Title 42 with the mask mandate, losing his train of thought, and slurring during key remarks. Do we have that one? Asking the team? Yeah, let's watch that one.
We're going to seize their yachts, their luxury homes, and other ill-begotten gains. of Putin's kleptocracy. Kleptocracy and the guys who are the kleptocracies. But these are bad guys. Is becoming
okay, maybe it's just his
much
stutter.
more informed on the motives of some of the political players and some of the political parties.
It's not his stutter, because then we could play the soundbite where he forgot the name of the Pentagon and Secretary of Defense. He didn't remember the word Pentagon, remember? And then he forgot the name Lloyd Austin as his defense secretary. And so we could keep going. All of that was prior to her departure. All of us saw it just on the little box that we call the TV or the computer, and were able to see that there was a problem. But Jen Psaki is not a doctor, Stu Burguiere, so she just couldn't do it.
It's interesting to see something. You have to open your eyes. That typically, it was the type of thing that Jen didn't seem to be doing, because anyone who saw this, and you could have seen this even before the 2020. I mean, we saw elements of it in the 2020 campaign, but it certainly got worse in the White House, I suppose. The change was, dramatic from what we saw back in, 2000, let's say 8. Right, here's a guy who's running for president for, the 44th time, losing embarrassing fashion yet again. Back then. And while he was not exactly, I would say, sharp, I wouldn't say he was an impressive politician, he was at some points quick. He had his wits with him. That totally went away when he was in office. And it was clear to anybody who wanted to see it. You had to be in complete denial to not see this coming. Now, I was somewhat surprised at how bad that performance was in the debate. I assumed he'd muddle through it and give a solid D- and people would move on with their lives. That didn't happen. And it wound up putting us into an interesting position, Megyn, because for years and years and years and years, we were called conspiracy theorists for believing that Joe Biden had lost his mental acuity to any sustainable level. We were told that it was mean and racist and whatever else to criticize it.
Ableist and ageist.
Ableist was a big one. Yep. You're against him.
And you were anti-stutterer.
Anti-stutterer, which is an interesting accusation for anyone. And we went through that whole period. And then the debate occurred. And it became clear for them the better thing to occur was people to know about that. All of a sudden, all of the things that had built up over all of those years were now beneficial to the left. And we entered into this golden age of media for about 2 weeks, where all of a sudden they were able to get these incredible insights from source after source after source. Every journalist turned into the person from, every, Watergate movie, right? Like that person, it's like, they're down there, they're in the parking garage, they're getting every single hit. They were able to uncover all these amazing things in such a short period of time. We are now at the situation where we have at least 3 books that I know of, and maybe more. One from someone at The Hill, one from Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson. And to be fair to Alex in particular, he really did cover this at the time. And then a third from authors combined of the New York Times, the Washington Post, and I think it's the Wall Street Journal. Are like 3 leading newspapers together. All of this is out now. All of this after the fact. And there's a good chunk of me that just wants to be angry about it and say, wait a minute, where the heck was everybody in the middle of this? Why weren't you covering this then? And I do think that is a valuable conversation to have at some point. But I also don't want to discourage this uncovering process. I really think we were in a really dangerous situation as a nation, Megyn. We were put in a position where all of our children, our parents, were in a situation where we were having a country run by someone who couldn't get through sentences. It wasn't just he got on stage and stuttered. This is a guy who obviously had lost it. This happened back in the Woodrow Wilson administration with his wife after he had a stroke. His wife was basically running the country. It seemed like Dr. Jill was running the country at some point. That's not constitutional. That's not allowed. There's potential criminal cover-up type stuff here.
Yeah.
And we focused on a lot of stuff, a lot of it very interesting. since Republicans have gone in. Like, I kind of wanted to see what was in the JFK files, sure. But this is right here. It's happening right now. It just affected us. And this should be a bigger focus. We should have major congressional investigations.
No, they want us to care about Signalgate. They want us.
Yeah.
Pete Hegseth used Signal to discuss a lot of things. I don't care. Shut up and move on. You just spare me your faux outrage. I don't believe you. You want to bring him down because he's Trump's guy. You don't give a shit about that. If you cared about the fact that he had a Signal conversation with his wife with details that he shouldn't have shared ostensibly with his wife, then you would have cared about the fact that Jill Biden was president. You didn't care. So stop it. Take a seat.
Yeah.
I'm no longer listening to you, and I'm not alone.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And I, first of all, can't listen to them about any of this nonsense. This is massive. This is the president of the United States who was just checked out while we were, it was a terrifying time. Who God only knows, he was micromanaging a situation between Russia and Ukraine. Think about what stopped us from World War III in that period, Megyn. Vladimir Putin's restraint and Joe Biden's competence. Those two things were the only two walls between us and World War III. We went through all of that period. And here's the thing. Every one of these people, they're all coming out. They're all giving their quotes now. They're all talking to these authors. I encourage it. I want it to happen. I want to know all their names. I want to know all the conversations and all the things that they say, because it should be the basis of a massive investigation. Every text they sent, they're complaining about Signal now. Every text they sent through that period should be able to be recovered by the U.S. government in an investigation that must happen.
That's right. In fact, there's no reason not to do it, especially all the messages that they exchanged on Signal, since they're so horrified by the use of Signal by a government official. That's wonderful. I'm sure you had those same reactions when you were in office and finding a way to communicate about Joe Biden's mental state. Let's just make sure, though, let's trust but verify. Listen to Psaki go on about how there was no cover-up by either the media or Biden's aides.
Cover-up is a very loaded term. Cover-up is often like a crime, right? We're talking when people use that term.
They say it's worse than the crime.
People use that term as they relate to Watergate or the covering up of not sharing public information about a war.
Yeah, and I'm not accusing anybody of a crime.
I understand, but other people have used that term, and I think it's a bit of a dangerous term.
Well, then you shouldn't have done it. That you should have thought about that when you were, because the thing about her is it's an obvious lie that she didn't know about Biden's mental decline while she was working for him. Complete lie. I don't believe one word. But it's not like she moved into a dumpster when she left MSNBC, never to be seen again. She went to MSNBC when she left the White House. She went to MSNBC and got her own show where she could report on everything, including the fact that just 3 months later, he was calling for a dead person at an event whose memorial video he had just watched. Where's Jackie? Remember? He thought the dead people were alive and the alive people were dead. And again, during her tenure, he didn't know what the word was for Pentagon or that Lloyd Austin was his sitting SecDef. So she has nowhere to go. No wonder she's worried about the use of the term cover-up.
Yeah, first of all, the term cover-up is completely legitimate. And the reason why it doesn't often associated with a crime a lot of times, and a lot of times people do say the cover-up is worse than the crime. All of that should apply here. I think that it's very likely that criminal behavior actually occurred in this particular incident. And it is a massively serious one that we can't just blow up. There's part of me that's just like, oh, God, thank God that's over. And I want to run away from it. I understand that instinct. We have to look into this. This cannot happen for at least a third time in U.S. history. We have to do something to stop this. There has to be more of a process to be able to make this this information come out at the time, so we know what's going on. And with Psaki, she has she I think would probably be cleared of a lot of this stuff because she did leave in 2022. God only knows if that's not why she left. It may very well have been why she left. But beyond that, what's hilarious about her is she had daily insight on this guy, seeing him behind the scenes over and over and over again. She says she missed it every step of the way. Then she went to MSNBC, got her own show, and watched every single one of his interviews, every single one of his speeches, and still couldn't pick it up that entire time, all the way until that debate stage. And what does MSNBC do with the information when you have a person who has that sort of ability to pick up on trends? What do? Promote her. That's what they did. They gave her a better time slot and probably more money because that perfectly encapsulates the media right now. If you are willing to take that embarrassment, that's got to be embarrassing for her.
Toe the line.
If you'll just sit there and soak it up and toe the line and go on television and say, I didn't see the most obvious thing in the entire world and embarrass yourself like that, congratulations, you've been promoted.
Welcome to the Democrat Party and MSNBC. But I repeat myself, it's unbelievable. She's not fooling anybody, and good for Ben Smith for raising those questions. Okay, 60 Minutes Sunday night. We talked about this last week, how they were out there asking us to feel sorry for them, that their executive producer quit, saying, I feel like we're getting corporate interference from above now. I'm not going to be able to produce with total independence. There's somebody who's kind of overseeing us now to see if like we've gone too crazy, and that's a bridge too far for me. Meanwhile, we showed the audience all the examples, not all, just some of the examples of how biased they've been against Trump and Republicans and in favor of Dems. It's just been egregious. So whatever oversight they're now getting has their work cut out for them and is already failing, because this hit piece they did on Trump on Sunday night was a joke, Stu. It was all about Trump's lawfare against the law firms and how now he's issued executive orders against certain law firms for hiring people Trump can't stand, or who in the past hired them, saying, I'm not sure that's a law firm we want to do business with as the federal government. I'm not sure that we trust the law firm that would hire this Marc Elias. And Scott Pelley pulls up this lawyer, Marc Elias, like he's the only one who would talk to us. Everybody's too scared. That is because he's made his whole life and career in Democrat politics trying to ruin Republicans and Trump in particular. He worked for the firm that hired Fusion GPS and got the whole Russiagate hoax going against President Trump that represented Hillary Clinton. This guy is up to his neck in disgusting leftist Democrat politics. Of course he's going to speak to them. And of course Trump doesn't want the federal government to do business with him or a firm that would hire this bad actor. Makes perfect sense to me. But to watch 60, you would think he just plucked some random white shoe law firm guy out of the ether and decided to punish him. And it was dishonest. So here's Scott Pelley from the opening on 60 Sunday night.
It was nearly impossible to get anyone on camera for this story because of the fear now running through our system of justice. Many firms and attorneys have been targeted, among them Marc Elias, a longtime opponent of Trump, who is the only lawyer the president has named who was willing to appear on 60 Minutes. Elias and others are warning that Trump's assault on the legal profession threatens the rule of law itself. Elias says that for him, it began with the president's personal grudge.
Donald Trump hates me because I fight hard and I fight for free and fair elections. I insist on fighting for democracy in court, fighting for voting rights in court, and insist on telling the truth about what the outcome of the 2020 election was.
Okay. So they treat what Marc Elias did to Trump in a passing reference. He includes the following line. There were allegations raised by Elias of in 2016 of shady dealings with Russia by Trump and his campaign. He's right that the FBI could not corroborate what was described as rumor. At least one allegation was promoted to the media by Clinton campaign representatives when Marc Elias was general counsel. At least one allegation promoted to the media by Clinton campaign reps when Marc Elias was general counsel. So he was just the harmless general counsel, and one allegation related to Russiagate was promoted by the Clinton campaign, which they represented when he was. That is absolute. They did not mention the fact that he was an architect of the whole Russian collusion hoax back in 2016. He was at Perkins Coie law firm, which hired Fusion GPS, the Oppo research firm, on behalf of Hillary Clinton's campaign and the DNC to prepare the fraudulent Russian dossier, which fueled the FBI investigation, wound up being the basis indirectly for the FISA warrants. They got to spy on the Team Trump for this hoax. He runs this thing called Democracy Docket, which sues on behalf of Democrats, claims to be defending democracy. They left out the fact that he was sanctioned by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit for unethical conduct just a couple of years ago in 2021. They added in 4 total lawyers, all bashed Trump. Not one defended him. There was no Trump defender featured at all on 60. And this is the new 60 that's got the corporate overseer to make sure they're fair to Trump. It's a fail.
Yes, a massive, massive failure. I can't even remember the last time I saw a segment on 60 Minutes that kind of came off as balanced and fair. I mean, I would love them to exist in that world. I think we really do have a need for a show like 60 Minutes in its actual in the theoretical form, I suppose, that it has been proposed over the years. Fair journalists, people, maybe spending high amounts of resources to go after stories that people aren't watching that closely. That would be a great thing for this country if it existed. It does not. You mentioned Steve Krakauer earlier. He wrote a great book, and he talked about this type of thing where, like, I, as a conservative, am often at odds with the media, but I'm rooting for it in a way. I want it would be helpful to our country if we had a media that didn't have to be constantly berated and mocked for their incompetence. I would love that world. You just see here that it doesn't exist. I mean, Marc Elias, you go back just on the Trump stuff, but I mean, he's been a Democratic operative for as long as I can remember being interested in politics. This guy has been around forever. And yeah, Trump probably does hate his guts. For good reason. He tried to destroy his presidency. He tried to destroy his life. He lied, in my opinion, constantly about accusations against Donald Trump, and he's done it against tons of other conservatives he doesn't like as well. This is not a guy who's down the middle, a guy who is, someone you can go to with like, hey, give us your honest, unbiased opinion against Donald Trump. That's not who he is. They can say they couldn't get anybody on the air. I don't believe that. This is 60 Minutes. I think they can get at least they used to be able to get anybody on the air they wanted. I don't believe that people are that afraid. I see them all the time, Megyn. We have no shortage of clips to run of people saying incredibly insane things against Donald Trump all the time. In the media, in politics, journalists, artists. Look at the Met Gala. Everyone seems to be prancing about with their opinions about how much they hate Donald Trump. These people are not hard to find. If these intimidations were real, then I think we'd have a totally different world. You don't see a Met Gala happening in downtown Pyongyang. They don't. There's no one to come up against Kim Jong-un and say those things. Mm-hmm. That is not the society we live in. It seems to be, in my view, rewarded to go out there and say negative things about Donald Trump.
And by the way, even if you're going to have 4 or 5 people on there criticizing Trump, Scott Pelley well knows that there is a journalistic obligation to feature someone there defending him. It's not hard to find somebody who will defend the president. They didn't try. They have no interest in doing it. Honestly, it's just so insane. The executive producer quit after doing piece after piece bashing Trump. And Sherry Redstone's trying to sell her company, Paramount, to Skydance. And she needs government approval for this. Paramount owns CBS. So she put in this sort of overseer of 60 to make sure they didn't get too crazy. And that, I don't know what it could mean if it's not, please stop unnecessarily and fakely bashing President Trump in an unfair way because it's causing me trouble. If it doesn't mean that, what does it mean? You're not leftist enough? That doesn't make any sense. Bill wouldn't have quit over that. He quit because he thought that they were going to try to, pull the bridle back on the Trump coverage. And this is the first thing they do once Bill's gone. It's just like none of it makes sense other than 60's committed to its bias, and nothing is going to change that. Okay, let's talk about this Dave Portnoy thing because it's kind of interesting. He was just on the show on Thursday. So Dave Portnoy, in addition to owning and running Barstool Sports, which is a podcast network, and he's been betting. There was a betting company that they were in business with for a while there. In any event, he also owns sports bars. And at one of his sports bars, I guess if you win trivia night, something, you have to do something to win the right to put like your little slogan on one of these light up whiteboards in the bar. And these two guys who won decided to post F the Jews and then posted the video on social media. This is from one of the Barstool bars in Philadelphia. So this got a lot of people upset. And Dave Portnoy saw it, and he's Jewish himself, but not that that's required to get upset over this kind of thing, but he didn't appreciate that much. And he decided to fire the employees who agreed to write that message that the patrons said they wanted. And then he offered to send the two patrons who wanted that message to Auschwitz on his dime to go learn a thing or two about that attitude and what it has led to in the past. And this created such a firestorm around Dave that he was very angry. He posted online the other day, Philadelphia, this is where this happened. The local news keeps calling me, saying, we want an interview. So he said, I'd give him an interview. You can see him sitting on his couch talking to his laptop. You know, it's clearly a Zoom. And he said it got heated about halfway in. So his friend or coworker pulled out his iPhone and started taping the exchange because the ABC Philadelphia reporter decided to make this into Barstool and its culture of hate. Its culture of hate is what led to this. Notwithstanding how Dave was handling this, watch, here's a bit of that.
Quoting two people, I have no idea who they are, from a made-up journal, so tell me where the professors are from.
From the University of Virginia.
Okay, so...
University?
No, that's a real university. I'd like to know where they're getting their information. I don't like quotes that I have no idea where they're coming from. I totally disagree for what you just said. Who's creating more hate right now in the world? When you say Barstool Sports to the white men or college campuses?
You go ahead and answer.
No, that was a question to you.
I'm the journalist. I'm asking.
Well, I don't play by those rules. What does that mean? You're a journalist? I'm a journalist. I run a big media organization. I just asked you a question.
Let's answer the question.
No, I asked you a question. You answer the question. You answer the question.
You're not running this interview.
All right, then the interview's over.
I know.
Awesome.
I love it.
Awesome.
Yes.
God, that's what I want to do in every interview. He did it. It's great.
Right? Good for him for shoving it down her throat. She begged him for the interview. She got a big exclusive with him in the midst of this firestorm. He's doing her a favor by sitting with her, and she decides to call him like the center of this culture of hate. It's your fault. Like, this is exactly how he should have handled her.
Absolutely. It was a great way to handle it. And, he's completely right in the points that he's making. First of all, he is Jewish, which is, look, as you point out, I was very angry when I heard this story. I'm a big supporter of Israel. I think they're very much in the right of what happened after, certainly October 7th in the time after. I'm happy what they're doing today in the Middle East. All of that being said, you don't need to be Jewish. You don't need to be a supporter of Israel to see that it's crazy to blame a Jewish guy for something that happened for the couple of patrons at a bar that he owns. That's completely insane, first of all. And his point about the universities is crucial. There are people going around not just saying bad things about Jews, but literally harassing Jewish students, targeting them, threatening their lives on a daily basis. There are Charlottesville-style protests in city after city after city across this country against Jews, and which seems to make it okay. I was just watching video of an area that was being taken over by pro-Palestinian protesters, which is a nice way of saying the Hamas wing of the party.
Yes.
And going there and taking over establishments. These are things, again, we were told on January 6th was the worst thing in the world. They're doing that in institutions around the country. This stuff is happening. It's real. We have seen it all over the place in high-minded Ivy League-style schools, not drunk people at bars, people who are planning protests for weeks, organizing people on these concepts of outdated, awful anti-Semitism that has been around for as long as, unfortunately, humanity's been thinking about it. I thought we could get past that at some point. Apparently not. And those people get praised. The Ilhan Omars of the world get praised. She just yesterday said Israel was involved in a genocide on Twitter when responding to J.D. Vance. All of this is going on, and we're supposed to be worried about Dave Portnoy, a guy who does quality sports content, owns a couple of bars, talks about betting, and is Jewish himself. We're supposed to care about his drunk patrons. That's the standard we're supposed to hit. I'm glad he slammed that laptop right in the face.
He crushed it. Turns out one of the students who, I don't know if it's student, one of the patrons who he offered a trip to Auschwitz, then came back and after getting suspended at his university for, I guess, posting this video online without apology, he got suspended from his university, came back and said, I was just posting it as a citizen journalist. And Dave came out and said, that's very different from what I was originally told, and withdrew the offer to send this young man to Auschwitz. And we don't know this young man's name. It's remained anonymous, I think, until now. So in any event, that's what's happening over at Barstool. Well done, Dave Portnoy. Handled it perfectly. Stu, a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for being here. And my regards to the beautiful superstar of this show, the real Lisa.
Yes, the real Lisa. And I will say I pretty much had a good time in this interview, but honestly, I have to say I'm out.
Till the next time. All right, coming up.
Thanks, Megyn.
Somebody the left can't stand. Somebody the left made their entire campaign when they backed Kamala Harris about a true boogeyman to the left. And let's see if you can guess who it is. You'll see right after this break. Don't go away. There's a lot of talk about government debt, but another 4 years of inflation, another real crisis, is personal debt. Some people are working harder than ever, and they're still drowning in credit card debt and overdue bills. Maybe you're one of them. But that is something that is solvable. And for this, you can turn to Done with Debt. Done with Debt has unique escape strategies to help end your debt fast, so you keep more of your hard-earned money. Done with Debt does not try to sell you a loan or bankruptcy. Their tough negotiators go one-on-one with your credit card and loan companies with one goal: to drastically reduce your bills, eliminate interest, and erase penalties. Most clients end up with more money in their pocket month one, and they don't stop until they break you free from debt permanently. Take a few minutes and visit donewithdebt.com. Speak with one of their strategists. It's free. But listen up, some of these solutions are time sensitive, so you're going to need to move quickly. Go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. The human body is incredible, capable of repair and growth that amazes scientists, even in 2025. But as the years pass, natural healing and building processes slow down. While this is normal, there is a way to support your body. A collagen supplement from Ancient Nutrition can help you look and feel your best. For centuries, people have searched for a mythical fountain of youth. Spoiler alert, it does not exist. However, collagen is a proven way to promote youthful health and appearance. And that's why I want to tell you about Ancient Nutrition's multi-collagen advanced lean. Ancient Nutrition combines ancient wisdom with modern science to create high-quality supplements. It's delicious and easy to incorporate into daily routines. You can mix it into your coffee, your matcha, or your smoothies. Right now, enjoy 25% off your first order at ancientnutrition.com/Megyn. That's ancientnutrition.com/Megyn for 25% off. Support your body and feel your best with Ancient Nutrition. Let me take you back to this time last year and leading to the summer of 2024. Remember this message, which was everywhere?
Project 2025 will destroy America. Look it up.
Project 2025, a far-right manifesto that has hundreds of pages of extremist policies to destroy the federal government as we know it.
I'm here to tell you what it is. It's a far-right plan for destroying democracy.
Project 2025 is an obvious and chilling blueprint for a Christo-fascist future.
Folks, Project 2025 is the biggest attack on our system of government, our personal freedom that has ever been proposed in the history of this country.
Democrats, this is some real talk for you. If you're not spending every second of every day, all next week, taking a lead pipe and a 2x4 to Donald Trump and Project 2025, get out of politics.
Remember that woman who walked out of the Democratic National Convention with a huge, purported book titled Project 2025. They thought that this was going to be the thing that brought it home for Kamala Harris, that took her to the promised land. Well, how'd that work out? Well, you're about to meet the man who is the president of the group behind 2025, the project. And it's called the Heritage Foundation. Kevin Roberts is their president. He's also a former college president, and he's author of the book, Dawn's Early Light, Taking Back Washington to Save America. Kevin, I mean, you heard all the terrible things they were saying about effectively you and heritage. How do you plead, sir?
Oh, I plead guilty for loving America so much that we would put together 110 conservative groups to do what? To have the blueprint for dismantling the administrative state for the sake of self-governance and freedom. So I'm glad that radical leftists dislike us so much. As we say at Heritage, when you're over the target, you're not catching flack. You're catching a lot of flack. And obviously, we're over the target when radical leftists think that we're a real problem. Ultimately, though, let me say this, Megyn, it's the American people, not Heritage, who should be taking a victory lap, because what President Trump is doing is what conservatives have needed to do for several decades, and that's restore some common sense to Washington, D.C.
They would go through the list of Project 2025. It's like, like trying to decrease the number of abortions in the country and trying to secure the border. I was like, great, cool. Like, this to me is like an advertising for the Republican Party. But the left treated it like it was a little Nazi manual that President Trump was going to just make into law as soon as he got in there.
It actually boomeranged on them. I mean, we computed at Heritage, even though we weren't seeking this, we're just a public policy group. They gave us $1 billion of earned media value. And what happened was, especially in the last month of the campaign, as you suggested, not only was it becoming a failing tactic for the Harris campaign, it was boomeranging on them in some swing districts where people said, I went to project2025.org. I don't necessarily agree with everything, but I agree with the top 10 proposals they have. And I want to vote for candidates who support this. So ultimately, it was a huge wind in our sails. Again, President Trump and Vice President Vance deserve all the credit for what they're doing. If we have played a minuscule role in helping to offer some suggestions on policies and people, that's what Heritage has done since 1980. And the left also hates it, Megyn, when I say this. We're going to do this every 4 years until the end of time, because it's what we're supposed to do to help men and women in elective office.
Well, you've also been very kind to yours truly. Whenever we go down to D.C., you guys have these amazing studios and you let us use them. So I'm grateful to you on a personal and professional basis. Okay, let's talk about, because you are a former college president and the issue of colleges under Trump has exploded. This was a campaign promise. He said he would dismantle the DEI that has infected all of these elite universities. And he's really, not only is he doing it, but he's fighting for it. So he issued these executive orders. Now, he could just sit back when they fight them legally and phone it in, but he is fighting tooth and nail. Like, you want to give me a hard time about it? I'm going to take away this source of funding for you. I'm going to take away that source of funding for you. Like, he won't rest until they actually do scrub these campuses of this very dangerous ideology, which, of course, has not only just caused problems in general, but has resulted in large part in the anti-Semitism that we're seeing on college campuses, which, when made manifest toward Jewish students, is illegal. The latest is, this is from the New York Times, dated today, that they are seeking to force Harvard back to the negotiating table on its list of demands, like to clean up the anti-Semitism problems, et cetera, by saying you will not be eligible for any new federal grants. No more federal money, basically, in a contentious letter to the president, Alan Garber, saying you shouldn't be seeking grants from the federal government since none will be provided, signed Education Secretary Linda McMahon. And she goes on in just a scathing piece about all the sins they've committed. What do you make of this?
Well, first of all, let me start with that letter from Secretary McMahon, who, by the way, like every other cabinet secretary, is doing such a great job. It was hot fire. And it's so righteous on behalf of common sense toward an institution, Harvard, that used to be the pride and joy of this country, even for those of us who didn't go there and never really wanted to. Instead, what Harvard has become is sort of the icon, the avatar for the radical left. And having been a college president, Megyn, I will tell you that if I had been the president of Harvard, Harvard and was receiving these missives from Donald Trump, I would have picked up the phone and said, Mr. President, can I come meet with you for half an hour and let's talk about our shared goal, which is that we love this country. We want to educate students. When we receive public money, we want to really treasure it and actually further science, further study, further American values. But he could not do that because Harvard doesn't believe in those things. And so the gig is up. Those of us, whether like me, an educator, or you, a very smart observer in journalism and news, understand is that the Ivy Leagues and most four-year universities in this country have been using the public's money against us by implementing all this DEI nonsense, to say nothing of the very steady decline in educational attainment we've seen with four-year and six-year graduation rates. So of all the things I'm excited about that this administration has done in its first few months, it is this effort on education broadly, but on Harvard in particular, that I would put at the top of my list.
It's like, what exactly do you think Trump should do with Harvard and Columbia and Princeton and Yale and all these colleges that are doing this, that are committed to this DEI way of teaching and being? It's like not just teaching, it's the hiring, it's the administrative staff, it's what they want to see in the students who apply there, it's in the lesson plans and the syllabi. I mean, it's just ubiquitous. So what should he be doing to make sure they do what his executive order says?
Two things. Number one, the letter from Secretary McMahon lays this out really clearly, and it is 100% solid ground legally and morally. And she says, look, in essence, you're free to do whatever you want to do as a private institution, but don't think that you can do that and also take billions of dollars of public money. If in fact you're going to take those public grants in order to fulfill federal government scientific research priorities, you have to follow by the rules. Harvard thinks that it's more important than the federal government and the American people. In essence, they want to have their cake and eat it too. And so what the Trump administration needs to do is cut off those funds, which the secretary has said will happen. Number two, it needs to continue to fight them in court, and I believe the Trump administration will prevail. But the third thing, which is unique to Harvard because of the scale of the implementation of DEI there, is that I think the president is right to threaten the tax-exempt status of a university. Those of us who run nonprofits would not want that threat being bandied about by any president of the United States. But there's precedent here. When a previous administration went against Bob Jones University for doing what? In essence, a form of DEI using a different definition. And so I think they're on solid ground here. In essence, Harvard has picked a fight that it's not going to win, and I think it's endangering the future of the university.
It's so amazing to me that they're really committed to this. You know, like what DEI really is discrimination. That's what they're fighting for. They want the ongoing ability to discriminate against whites and Jews, as the case may be. And it's really, really important to them. They are willing to die trying. You look at just on Tuesday, there's a piece in commentary today called Defunding Shouldn't Stop with Harvard, where they outline the fact that their presidential task force on combating anti-Semitism and anti-Israel bias, they released their final report. Then they had to do the one on combating bias against Muslims, too, as though that's an equal problem at Harvard's campus. Sure, Jan, sure. It's a 300-plus page document, and they conclude it reveals the depth of the university's systemic bias against Jewish students. Many students, quote, described experiences of being bullied or shunned by fellow students, singled out for negative attention by instructors, and feeling ignored by administrators. Fear of encountering hostility has led some Jewish students to conceal their Jewish identity from classmates. One wrote, I count among my peers many students who regularly posted social media images like decolonization is not a metaphor, with Jewish blood dripping from the text, one graduate student said. Imagine trying to go to school and learn in this environment, and yet they're still holding on, Harvard is, as are the other universities, to their ability to teach and run the university just exactly as they see fit. Like we should trust them.
It's so grotesque. I mean, can you imagine that in 2025, we're having to have this conversation about any university, but in this case, Harvard, supposedly one of the top universities in the world, defending the implementation of anti-Semitism such that if as you said, a Jewish student is on campus, it probably is prudent from their point of view to hide their religious identity in the United States of America in 2025. This tells you everything you need to know. But let me say, especially for my Jewish friends who are very worried about their own kids and grandkids at these campuses, as tragic and evil as this is, there is a silver lining here because President Trump is willing to play ball, and it's this. This is highlighting the defense of anti-Semitism by Ivy League presidents is highlighting for the American people who weren't quite sure this was such a big problem anymore, that it is. And what it's doing is sustaining the popular will for the kind of reform that needs to happen to eradicate anti-Semitism, period, but also to do the kind of higher education reform that many of us, myself included, have been involved in for 25 years. I am, therefore, all of us really at Heritage, Megyn, are really optimistic about how all of this will turn out.
Yeah, because it goes well beyond anti-Semitism. And obviously we need to make sure that there's still room to criticize Israel. That's a different kettle of fish. You can criticize Israel all day long and say that their response is disproportionate. All that's fine. But, this is what decolonization looks like with the murder of a bunch of Jews. Now you've crossed a line. Now it's different. Intimidation tactics that stop Jews from going across campus or to class. You've crossed a totally different line. And the feds have an obligation under the law to step in and stop you. But it's so beyond just Jewish people. It's whites. That's the truth, Kevin. All these DEI policies, they're illegal. It's already illegal to discriminate against anyone because of their skin color, including whites. But they do it every day. And I feel like they'll get rid of that over their dead bodies.
Oh, they will. That's the hill that they're going to die on. And a couple of things on that is you talk often on your show, in this era in which we have seen the deterioration of properly ordered masculinity, one of the rotten fruits of that is that we see a steadily declining percentage of the American university student body being male. We obviously want everyone to succeed, all women and all men. But it's a real concern for me as an educator, someone who mentors a lot of younger people here in Washington, D.C., to see that DEI has become so ingrained in our society that we almost, even if we hate it, and obviously you and I and your audience do, we don't realize how pervasive it has become in the thinking, especially of younger generations of Americans. That's why we have to fight so hard in policy, but also informally to root it out and be aware that these university presidents of the Ivy Leagues are not going to stop fighting. They're going to continue to defend anti-Semitism. But the real cradle for them, that they are the altar that they want to defend, is to make sure that white men do not get an equal chance of attending their universities. The only proof you need of that is to look at their admissions rates. And ultimately, what you and I are saying, what President Trump is saying, is very common sense. How about we re-implement meritocracy in universities, in every kind of industry for success? That's what the American people voted for last November. So hats off to President Trump for trying to re-implement that. It's the American dream.
He's not afraid of the fight at all. So as we close out his first 100 days, that was on last Tuesday, how do you think he's doing? In particular, how did he do and how is he doing on the tariff policy, which is by far the most controversial thing he's unveiled?
Look, we'd give him an A or an A+ for the first 100 days, and we're pretty tough graders at Heritage. We don't believe in grade inflation. And the reason it's not quite an A+ is I think that where he's landed on the tariff regime now is where it should have been 4 weeks ago. We at Heritage support the philosophy of a reciprocal tariff regime that uses tariffs as a temporary tool of statecraft to exact fair trade, which is something we all believe in. And ultimately, that's where the president has gotten or is very close to establishing that. Ultimately, we believe the real fruit that will come from this regime of tariffs is to put the Chinese Communist Party on an island. Because we have confidence in that, we would still rate the administration's first 100 days as an A. In every other respect, they've hit the ball out of the park. And let me just say, if I may, kind of looking ahead to the next 100 days, the success of the first 100 days will really hinge upon the ability of Congress, as soon as it possibly can, to pass the reconciliation bill so that we can codify some of these successes.
Well, there are reports that Trump is asking for a record cut in spending, that he really wants this budget to go back to the way it was decades ago in terms of government spending. But the only thing that would increase would be the defense budget by some. Do you think there's any chance that this Republican Congress will do that they will cut spending by record levels, add to defense, and pass tax cuts?
There is a chance, but I'm going to be honest. It's what we have to be at the Heritage Foundation. The thin majority in the House, the non-filibuster-proof majority in the Senate for Republicans means that both Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune have a very, very narrow path to walk. At Heritage, we're trying to give them the air cover to be as aggressive as possible, hopefully get to $1.5 trillion in spending cuts. And ultimately, when you do that and you have the reform-minded defense secretary at the Pentagon, you can actually increase spending on defense a little bit by providing for the munition systems for the next war rather than for the last war. Ultimately, Megyn, I do think there's a chance. What we're trying to do at Heritage is encourage our friends in Congress to get this done as quickly as possible, because what the American people are looking for is some certainty about all of these questions.
Yeah, and Pete's made clear he's trying to replace over at the Pentagon the munitions that we've been shipping over to Ukraine. I mean, it's not about like a barreling toward war at this point. It's about trying to make sure we have our base covered. God forbid we were to need it. He did announce today that he's firing a bunch of generals and like the top brass, and he wants to take the money and resources that were going for those guys and supply it to the warfighters. So we'll see what that looks like. It's been a pleasure, Kevin Roberts. I don't believe what they said about you. It's not right.
Megyn, you are a national treasure. Thanks for everything you do. It was a real pleasure to join you.
Oh, I hope I see you again. All the best to you. And we are back tomorrow with Chamath and Jason from the All In podcast. The besties, two of the besties will come see us. They're always fun. We'll see you guys then.